let's give an evaluation over the first week of the two newest Mariners, TJ. Dom Canzone, Josh Rojas. There's not a huge sample size, but we can take away what have we seen in the first week out of these guys.
The one thing I will note first, let's start with Canzone, is that the Mariners trust him already. He's hitting high in the lineup. He's hitting above guys like, depending on the pitcher, he's hitting above Cal Raleigh. He's hitting above Teoscar Hernandez. If Jared Kelenic was in the lineup, he would be hitting over Jared Kelenic. They have put some trust in him, not been on the roster too long and not been in the big leagues too long. They've been giving him some pretty big at-bats, mostly out of the 5-hole so far, which is pretty interesting. Otherwise, it's just such a small sample. He's not striking out a lot. He's walking at a league average rate. The most fun thing I found out while thinking of my evaluation of Dom Canzone over his first week with the Mariners is that this man hit .430 in the month of June in the minors. Does that sound right? .430.
He was too good for any level of the minor leagues. There's a reason he's up in the big leagues, and there's a reason the Mariners believe in him. You hit that well through all your levels of the minor leagues, which we highlighted on the show when they traded for him. Yeah, you're going to the majors. Now, it's not fair to expect Canzone, having less than 75 big league plate appearances, to just click right away. That's not going to happen. He needs some time to adjust, as does any big leaguer. But I think there's things to like about him early. Not just his track record in the minors, but the fact he doesn't strike out a lot, which is a very refreshing sign for an outfield that, like we talked about in the last show, will strike out a lot when it's the main three of Kelenic, Julio, and Teoscar. So he doesn't strike out a lot. Bat to ball is pretty good. I mean, you saw him spray that ball the other way for a double in left center field in one of his first few games at home in Seattle. So he shows that he can go the other way a little bit. But there's only so much we can take away, and you just said the same thing. You only play a handful of games so far like Canzone has. We're going to need a little bit more of a sample size. Because the other thing, too, is he wasn't playing much in the Angels series. Angels have a bunch of lefty starters. They sat him as a result. We still need to see a little bit more.
Yeah, that was the other thing. I noted that him and Rojas, who we'll touch on, I mean, they've kind of paired him in a platoon here so far. I mean, if there's a righty on the mound, those two play. If there's a lefty on the mound, they're putting Dylan Moore and Jose Caballero in the lineup instead. So there's kind of a balancing act, and I'm curious to see what their confidence level in Dom Canzone is to hit against lefties. Because, again, guys who are pretty good hitters, doesn't really matter if there's a lefty or a righty on the mound, but since baseball is a traditional sport and some lefties struggle against lefties, that's what happens. So at this point, it kind of shrugs, and he's playing more than he played in Arizona. But I think consistent at-bats is pretty important here to Dom Canzone. And if there's an easy lefty on the mound, I don't really see why not.
I would guess this is their way to ease him in. It's just their way of getting him acclimated, and then they'll start to mix him in against more lefties, because you're right. I think they see him as a guy that can make impact and serious impact in the lineup long-term with what he does at the plate. And if that's the case, yeah, he's going to be playing every day. I think, again, with less than 20 big league games, they're just easing him in.
And Dylan Moore's been pretty good. So I'll give him to that. Now, hear me out. Dylan Moore and Canzone in the lineup at the same time, and Caballero and Rojas on the bench. Sounds like a win for both parties.
Sure. I am the last person you ever have to tell, get Dylan Moore more playing time.
Can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but I've come to appreciate. Can't believe to appreciate. 2022 TJ is shuddering.
I think you were fed up. I think you were fed up with him in 21 when I was already on board the hype train, and when I was on the hype train again in 2022, you just rolled your eyes until you finally got to the point where I had radicalized you enough to realize, oh yeah, this guy's good and he provides value.
Mm-hmm. Now Rojas, I think it's very much what we expected. Hasn't hit the ball all that hard. Only had 6 at bats in this lineup, and yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be on the roster the rest of the season. They like his versatility. Again, plays both infield and outfield. But Sam Haggerty's down there cooking in the minor leagues. And Josh Rojas, who's a guy who's notorious for not hitting the ball all that hard. In, again, his small sample size and 6 at-bats has not hit a ball harder than 93 miles an hour. So take that as you will in my short analysis of Josh Rojas.
We're going to contradict ourselves a little bit here because we were just talking about with Dom Canzone how a guy who's had that little big league experience needs time. You've got to ease him in. He's expected to make he's expected to be a real force in the lineup down the road. Josh Rojas has also barely played. The difference with him is he has more big league time. And I know this isn't really fair to judge him off 3 games, but the at-bats he's had in the first few games have really not looked very good.
There's a bit of a disclaimer. He did just come back from injury for about a month and a half when the Mariners traded for him, so he still could be working his way back a tiny bit. There's just, despite the value last season for Rojas, there's just not a ton to look forward to in the bat. And when Sam Haggerty is putting up a 133 WRC plus down in Tacoma, and he runs the bases better, you would think, and might be a little more versatile in the outfield. And you're probably a little more comfortable with Haggerty as well, seeing him for last season and what he did last year. Then kind of tingles a little bit. But Jerry did just trade for him, so I would actually be kind of surprised if they sent him down this quick.
It would be a shocker, but I do wonder if they're pondering the idea of bringing Haggerty up in exchange for Rojas. And I say that because you mentioned the WRC+. Haggerty's hitting 321 down there. He's OPSing 987. He's hit 8 bombs. I know the PCL is a bandbox. We say it every show. Every time we talk about AAA, we acknowledge it. But between his big league experience, the familiarity he already has with the club, the speed and defense he can play, and if he's hitting like this, you just have to wonder. Because the whole reason Haggerty got sent down to begin with is he wasn't hitting. But if he's hitting this well in Tacoma, you have to wonder if they're starting to mull the idea of getting him another shot.
It'll be something to keep an eye on. I look forward to revisiting this probably in about a month, or we'll probably at the end of the season when we conclude and wrap up, we'll have a better sense for what these are. But just a week of review say that. I still can't believe Dom Canzone hit 430 a month. That's kind of absurd. Our friend Jeremy, who works for the Mariners and is in Tacoma, he said, quote, like Canzone was the best hitter in AAA he saw all year. And I'd say that that 430 mark kind of checks all the boxes.
The numbers back it up. Again, it's very similar to what Mitch Haniger did in the minors. When you look at their careers in the minor leagues and when they got up to the big leagues, similar. And they both got traded to Seattle from the Diamondbacks. I'm not saying Canzone's going to be exactly that. I'm not sure Canzone has the same raw power that Mitch has. But I think there's a reason to believe he could be a good bat. We just got to give him a little time. And we should say, too, again, we're probably contradicting ourselves a little bit with Rojas. We shouldn't write him off after 3 games. He may turn around the next week and everything starts to click for him. But we're just judging off what he's done the first few games.